OG Lee in the house once again, once again. Thank goodness, thank goodness. So we moved now from Dallas to Fort Worth, and another black person has been killed by a white police officer. This time, a black young lady, college graduate, biologist, gainfully employed, sitting there. Granted, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting in her home, playing video games, bonding with her nephew, and she's killed by a police officer's single bullet. I don't know what to say about this, people, but it seems like, I mean, we're just getting over the Botham Jean case. And it's like there's this system in place to keep these kinds of things prevalent in the society. It's really bugging me out, man. Because, I just thought about it when I read this thing, and I thought, I remember when I used to see them on TV where police officers used to say, come out with your hands up. When they thought it was a case where they thought somebody might have been on the other side of where they were, it's like they gave them a chance to surrender. And they said, come out with your hands up. And you'd see if that were the case, somebody would come from the back cowering, putting their hands up all sheepishly, and the police would arrest them. So it seems to me that a police officer who comes in a situation like this and gives no kind of prior warning, just let me see your hands and then shoot you, this to me is intentional, very intentional. And by the way, he resigned this morning, the police officer, and although they never showed his face. I don't know why they don't show the face, but yet they show the victim's face, 2 minutes after it happens. But anyway, he resigns, and he resigned in the face of being fired. Because when his police chief, dealt with the cam, the body cam and all of this stuff, and seeing what an egregious murder it was, he got rid of it. It's totally uncalled for, and I want people to just stop for a minute. And I want you to think about her 8-year-old nephew. Because with all due respect, she's gone. He's still living. And he witnessed this. So even though they don't think it, but this boy is going to need some counseling for a long time. You talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And just to think now that this happened within the privacy of their home, what kind of faith, what kind of confidence is this young man going to have in police? He may take after Brant Botham and wish for her forgiveness and want a hug and what have you. I don't know. But just thinking about it, it just seems like it's going to be a hell of a mental toil on this young man for years to come. I'm almost to the point where I'm thinking like these police officers who are roguish in nature, it's almost as if there's something at play here to keep this stuff boiling in America, to start some kind of racial war or something like that. It's almost as if they get an assignment. And much like any gang, they have to carry out the orders of people higher than them in the organization, lest they get killed. And I don't know any other way to think about it. We're just getting over the Botham Jean case, and people are just kind of simmering down from that, and then they turn the fire up and the thing boils again. And in some of the most extreme circumstances, you're starting now to see it wasn't just killing people out on the streets, maybe some guy running and you shoot him in the back and all of this stuff, stopping somebody maybe in their car. It's now going into the privacy of their homes. And this is very, very disturbing. Now, of course, we're going to have a day in court. But what's going to be interesting, unlike the Botham case, is that this guy was in uniform. And we can see something and be argumentative about it and have marches and all this stuff. But the bottom line is what happens within the walls of the court. And the court has been rather favorable towards police officers. Now, anytime you start getting lawyers together and they get these witnesses and they'll start chopping and butchering up the video and what have you, you can convince people to believe anything. And so here you have pretty much what everybody sees as an innocent person being gunned down by a police officer. Once they get into that courtroom, a lot of times the whole situation changes. And it turns out a lot of times that they favor the police officer because he feared for his life. But I always wonder, even in terms of trying to give the police officer the full benefit of the doubt, how do you react so quickly? And how can you interpret what's going on in the situation? If you say to someone, "Show me your hands," and then you shoot, they didn't have a chance to show you their hand. And so it's like, wait a minute, this is an execution in this case, especially when you see that the young lady happens to be an innocent person in their own home. So now what are they going to say? That the control that she had, he thought was a pistol in all likelihood, or something. I don't know. But he's going to, once he gets through going through his lawyers and he sees that, man, my life is on the line here, they're going to come up with all kind of cockamamie stories. So I guess the control is going to be what he said he saw in her hand, and he took it for a weapon and he fired. I don't know, but he's going to come up with something to try to justify his roguish behavior. And it's a trip, man, because I'm really starting to see on, social media, brothers getting angry about this. And that concerns me. And it concerns me because a lot of times people will begin to act out of emotion without thinking. And whenever I think about a race war in this country, I really, really get, I really kind of get scared in a way. Not for lack of courage to do what may be necessary, but I think about it in terms of whenever I've ever went to buy a weapon or even thought about it, whether it was a gun show, legitimate or whatever, I never bought it from a black person. I always bought it from a white person. So in terms of the ammunitions, the supplies, everything comes from white people. So a lot of times when you think, how can you have a war with somebody who supplies you with the weaponry? Now, with it being capitalism, I'm sure that maybe some third party will come in and maybe supply black people with weaponry. But, of course, that would make the price of stuff go sky high and may make it to the point where we couldn't get the supplies as readily as we would need them. Not to mention, we're outnumbered by white people, maybe 8, 9 to 1, which, of course, automatic weapons will kind of work some of that out, maybe in our favor, or, not in our favor. But the bottom line is, I don't think that we're at the point where we are ready to go to any kind of a racial war. Now, let me say this. In my opinion, if police keep this up, what you will have, and I'm sure at some point they will find a way to retaliate and the thing will escalate. But what I envision is seeing police officers stationed somewhere and starting to see people take pot shots at police officers. In other words, if you can envision a New York City, there's a lot of times where police have a beat and they stand around. And honestly speaking, from a reality standpoint, you got a police officer that's standing there. He has no car. He's stationed at his beat. There's nothing from stopping somebody from doing a drive-by. It's just been graced to this point that hasn't happened. Now, of course, the police at that point will go and try to find someone that they, will say did it, although it'd be very difficult in a large city like New York. Just like they can't catch criminals that kill other people, it's going to be real hard to start catching criminals who kill police officers. And that is what I envision before any kind of a racial, an all-out racial war. People starting to kill police and maim and hunt down police as they stand around on their beats and what have you. And so I don't want to see that happening, but to me, it's going to be a likelihood if this keeps up. Because as I said, we're just getting over the Botham Jean case, and here comes another one. Almost the same type of a reckless killing. And I think that it bothers people more when it's a woman. As a matter of fact, I'm almost certain that it does. And you also have where you could very well say, what if the bullet would have caught little man? Then it would have really, really been an outrageous reaction, because black people are only going to get pushed so far, believe me. But we just have another case here, another case, and this. Let me say this to her. Let me inject this right here, because it's very important in my opinion. When you have a case like this, we all have white people that we know. I've got white people intimately interwoven in my family. And we all have these white friends at work. We have some white neighbors. Some of us go to church with white people. Why don't white people ever voice their opinion on stuff like this? To me, it's the same situation in terms of slavery, where you might have disagreed with it, but you said nothing, so it kept going. And so I asked myself, I have not heard anything from a church. Why? I have not heard anything from the white neighbor. Why? I have not heard on social media, Facebook, Twitter, white people condemning this en masse. And to me, I've always said, I see white people when they can come out in a group to march against something with black people. They'll do it. But they very seldom put themselves on an individual basis to say, hey, I'm standing against this. And so I think they are just as scared, as black people when they were slaves, that the slave master might do something to you, or he'll round up some of his people and come to get you if you identify yourself as what they used to call a nigger lover. Because I don't see white people denouncing this stuff publicly. And so I think, at some point you hear black people and white people talking about America as one and all people are the same. And why don't white people say something against this? If you don't say anything, to me, your silence suggests that these people are deserving of what they get. It's suggesting to me that you're saying, these police have a hard job and they really can't determine any of these niggas from one from another. So they have to sometimes, shoot people, and it's an innocent thing, but hey, it's collateral damage in doing their job. I don't know what, because I don't hear from them. And I'm really wondering why white people don't say anything about this. If everybody's supposed to be American, why don't white people take the stand and say, this killing of American people has got to stop? Right? But it seems like if they would say that it appears as if they're taking sides, black against white, not a police officer against someone who was innocent that was killed. And so for me, until that happens, this stuff is going to continue, because let's face it, white people are valued and their opinions are valued more than black people. We can do all of the marching that we want, but it's not until the mainstream begins to speak out against this that something really is going to happen. And that needs to happen. It's very, very disturbing to me that white people are not saying something against American life. Many of us have been in the military, going all the way back to World War I, even before that. Black people involved with white people hand in hand to protect this country as citizens. Coming from slavery now, right? Coming from slavery, we've kept trying to integrate ourselves into this life. And so to not talk about this as American people having some injustices done against them is very, very disturbing to me. And I'm wanting you to pay attention to that, because I do not see white people in mass speaking out against this stuff. And it is very disturbing. Anyway, what we have to do now is kind of, as we do, we'll rally around the flag and we'll wait for their process to take place. And, there's a lot of people who unfortunately will just throw their hands up and say, well, they're not going to do anything. And each time that happens, we lose, as I said, more and more trust in our public officials. But moreover, the pot keeps boiling, and it's getting up. It's getting up to where people are going to be willing to risk their lives for what's happening to their fellow black citizens. So I'm like all of the cases. I'm going to watch this. Obviously, you're going to watch it. It's going to play out in the news. It's going to already be played out in the court of public opinion. So by the time this asshole goes to court, people will have already had worked up, their opinion, and have decisions in their mind. And then the courts will come down and give their decision. And in this case, since it's a woman, it may be that we have some rioting, we have some burning, and we have some looting all over the nation. It's getting to that point where black people are going to start uprising. It's going to happen. And so I think that we need to do something in this case. So you can send a message. White America can send a message. In a case like this, that's finally starting to say, hey, we're not going to stand for this. Remember now, like I tell people, if you were following the case in Minneapolis, the Somali-born police officer, as he sat in his car, he thought that this white lady who happened to be visiting from Europe, somewhere, Denmark or whatever, he was fearing for his life. He thought she posed a threat. He killed her. What happened? They had to send a message to the people in Europe also, because they knew it was being played out in the court of public opinion over there. They ended up sending a message and put this young man in prison. A police officer, one of their men in blue, but he happened to be Somali, so he was, a colored brother, as they say. So he ended up doing some time. And that sent a message, even if it were one that was kind of subliminal, it sent a message to minority police officers that, hey, don't get beside yourself. You don't get the same pass as white police officers, even though you feared for your life. Why? It must be because your life is not as valuable as the white man's. But in any case, we have to start looking at the way that the people who happen to be the jurors and what have you, the judges and everybody involved can send a message that says it's time to stop wantonly killing black people. And this has to happen in this case, lest we're going to see some civil unrest. This is OG Lee, and I'll see you again soon. And this is something that's going to be very, very interesting to watch.